Welcome to another episode of Mr. T Finds Cool Stuff in the DMG. GMG. Hi there fellow roleplayers and game masters, my name is Mr. Tarask and today I want to talk again about the Game Master's Guide for Tales of Valiant by Kobold Press. This is a video series. This is the third video I think in the series. The first one was a early impressions video on the book. The second one was just me finding some cool stuff in the book, and now I'm doing that again. And the reason for that is I just think there's too much in this book, too much good stuff and just too much stuff in general to contain in one video. This is a book that I am going to end up using a lot. As long as I play Tales of the Valiant or even 5th edition, I'm gonna use this Game Master's Guide a lot because I absolutely love the way it is built. And I found two more things that I really like about it and that I just wanted to quickly talk about and point out to you guys. The first one being the random campaign dressing section in the book is really cool. It is a short section. At first I glanced over it because it kind of felt a little bit like filler, but then I started reading deeper into it and there's some really smart things in there that I want to talk about. And then I want to jump into the diseases, because something that I like doing every now and then to my players is having them pick the wrong mushroom in the forest and get a disease. Before we jump into the PDF, can I quickly ask you to hit the link in the description below to my backer kit campaign, because right now we are trying to fund the follow-up to the Quintessential Guide to Monster Encounters, which is called the Quintessential Guide to Urban Encounters. It is a book with urban encounters, with a completely fleshed out city, all of that stuff. It's me, it's Wally DM, Dungeon Dad, and yes, you guessed it, JVC freaking Perry. We're working again together on this book. Make sure to check that out. Link is in the description below. And if you don't own this book yet, you can grab the PDF as an add-on for only $10, so make sure to check it out. So without further ado, let's jump into Appendix B, Random Campaign Dressing, in the back of the book on page 284 of the PDF or the physical book or whatever. I found it in the physical book while just sitting on my chair and just reading through this book. I found it and I glanced over it the first couple of times that I was flipping through this book, because it felt a little bit like, it kind of felt like filler in a way, because there's only 1, 2, 3... maybe 4 pages, or is there more? There's 5 pages and then it just stops, and a lot of it is the same. But then I started reading deeper into it and I found some really smart things in here. So I want to talk about that really quickly right here, because random campaign filler, random campaign dressing, random campaign filler is really cool for those GMs who want to keep the game a game for themselves. And this is something that I talk about with a lot of new GMs, a lot of newer GMs over-prepare. And they take the gaming aspect out of the game for themselves. The gaming aspect remains for the players, but not for themselves. Something that I really like to do is roll random tables just so that I have a game to play as well. I need to fill that in further, and I really like going off of a simple ID and then just taking that and improvising. Now, when you do that, make sure that your players know you're doing it that way and embrace it. It's just one of the rules of theater is if you cannot hide it, you need to show it, right? So you need to make it bigger. If you cannot make something smaller and hide it, you need to make it bigger so that the audience sees it. It's the same with players for me. If you need to roll, or if you want to roll on random rolling tables to decide the name for an NPC, for example, just do that, but do that so that the players can see it. Never try to hide that stuff. So yeah, they got an instant town in here, an unusual point of interest, a city center, NPC generator, which is really cool, encounters for tier 1 and tier 2 really quickly, a mildly magical curios, which is a really cool table. There's some really random stuff in here. For example, really quickly, there is this, where was it? There was this doorknob in here, just like a golden doorknob or something, or was that in here? There's a doorknob in here that's worth a couple copper pieces. Here there is a training dummy that self-heals. There is a pot that holds flowers, and the flower will always survive. It doesn't need water or sunlight. These curios feature some minor magical effect. They won't give a bump to stats or an obvious edge in combat, but clever players can find plenty of ways to put these items to use. I really like that. These are like magic items, but they're not really like game-breaking or game-changing magic items. They're just like a little thing, maybe like a candle that is lit forever or whatever, which can come in really handy when you're dungeon crawling, right? So you got a city center, for example. I really like this. So, oh, we need to go to a town. Is there a settlement nearby? And you're like, oh shit, is there a settlement nearby? Maybe there is a settlement nearby. So let's see if there is a settlement nearby. I need to roll a d6, and you're like, oh yeah, there is a town nearby with about 3,000 population, so it's kind of like not yet a city, but it's also like somewhat more than a town, and bam, you got yourself going. All I had was a 4, and it said town between 2,000 and 5,000. I just give that like 3,000 to 4,000 population, which is like a big town, but not yet a city kind of thing, and just kind of go from there. If you need more features on that town, you can roll a d6 again. I got a 4 again. Densely packed buildings. So as soon as the players are like, yeah, we need to go to the town because we need to stock up on arrows because our archer doesn't have any arrows anymore. Where's the fucking town? The town is that way. When you reach down, you see that all of the houses and everything are like super densely packed. Bam, your players have something. You rolled 2 dice, and you and your players have something for that town. Let's put a geographical feature in that town. I need to roll a d10 really quickly. So the town has a 5. Oh shit, what did I do? I pressed the button. Has a 5 geographical feature, fields. Okay, sure. A point of interest, unusual point of interest. Is that in the town? It's probably in the town. Let's just roll a d10 again. I got a 7. Birds avoid the area completely. They do not fly over it or land within its borders. That's really cool. Like, it's an unusual thing that happens to this town. It's really densely packed town with like 3,000 to 4,000 people in it. In like fields, there's fields everywhere, and then there's this densely packed town. Maybe they packed it that densely to save space, so there was enough place for like having fields for farming and stuff, but birds completely ignore it. Why? You as a game master can come up with that. Maybe there's some rumors, different kinds of rumors from different people. Maybe nobody really knows. Who knows? Nobody really knows. Or there might be like an Arakakra leader who wants to be the only bird in town. Basically, that sounded really wrong, but I didn't meant it that way. So there's city center. So I want to talk to like the first person I see. The players need something from somebody, and they're like, "Who's the first person I see?" And you're like, "Okay, no problem. The first person you see is D100. That's not their name. That's not their name." And let's say we're playing in Midgard. A D100 is 41. By the way, I like that they say Midgard lineage. So the normal lineage and the Midgard lineage separately. Love it. So the first person you see is a gnome. I rolled a 41. It's a gnome. You see a gnome. And this gnome is a profession 8. A profession, he's an engraver. You see this gnome engraver, and he's working in a shop. And that's who you go to, probably, right? Bam, you got yourself an NPC. I absolutely love this quick and dirty NPC town location quirk generator. It's not like super expensive system to create your town with like the politics and all that stuff. No, it's just like have something to go off of, and bam, you got yourself going, right? You can even give them a quirk with a D20. And speaks with a flat dialect. It's impossible to get them to express any emotion at all. Oh, okay, cool. Actually fits an engraver, right? But something that I don't agree with, Kobold Press, if you're listening, something that I haven't agreed with ever, is that this is a profession. Thief is not a profession. Thief is something you do if you don't have a profession or whatever, right? So a blacksmith, you can go to the town and be like, hey, I want to be a blacksmith. I pay taxes as a blacksmith or a farmer or a clother or a weaver or a guard. But as a thief, you're just a thief. That's not a profession. I don't like that's in here. Other than that, this is absolutely great. There's more here. There's also, there's these mildly magical curios. Maybe they find something in the shop of the engraver. I don't know. Let's roll a D100 for that. A D100, 31. A tiny porcelain rabbit that animates and hops in a circle when set on a flat surface. It's just a toy, man. Really cool. So maybe they find that. Maybe they get that from the engraver. It's just sitting there on a shelf, priced like 1 gold piece or half a gold piece or whatever, you know? Something that I also find really cool is oftentimes you want to roll for copper pieces or gold pieces or silver pieces or platinum pieces or whatever. But often in other books, you either roll for the gold value or you get like, it says like a gem worth this much or a trinket worth this much or a XYZ worth this much. They're actually giving you a list of stuff you can tell your players of what it is. So for example, if you go to the gold piece items and you roll a D10, where did I put my D10? Is this my D10? Where's my D10? What the fuck? Oh, here's my D10. So you roll a D10, I roll a 6, which is a stuffed green and blue hummingbird. That's cool, right? This is if you're rolling a D100, and this is if you're rolling a D10. Something like that? Does that make sense? Yeah, probably. And it's worth 1 to 9 gold pieces. That's it. That's it. So instead of giving your player, say, 4 gold pieces, you're like, you find yourself a stuffed hummingbird with like green and blue hummingbirds. And the players are like, okay, what is it worth? And you're like, I don't know. Maybe ask the engraver you just met. They can maybe tell you. I don't know. Stuff like that. Random campaign dressing is the perfect title for this. There's environmental encounters. Sorry, that's a new section. There's within all castles or places, elaborate lairs or other important sites should have personality. Use the results from these tables to give those locales some extra little details to make them stand out. So you can have a quirk in a castle or a strange item in a castle. Let's roll on this really quickly as well, right? So you can have a quirk. 17. The castle is made of eternal ice that never melts. That's not a quirk. That's not a quirk. That is a choice. Before you even build the castle, it is a design feature. It is strange items in the castle. 7. Golden cage broken out of from the inside. Okay, weird, but yeah, sure. So random campaign dressing. If you are the kind of GM who likes to improvise, this is amazing because not only can you improvise, you have something to improvise off. Often when you improvise, you need like something to go off of, and then you are good to go, and you just like go, and your players know you're improvising, but they're completely totally okay with that. And I absolutely love that it is in the Game Master's Guide. And then let's talk about diseases. I know these two subjects in this video don't have anything to do with each other. It's just me finding stuff that I like about this book, and something that I really like from a Game Master's Guide is diseases. I've always loved diseases in Dungeons and Dragons and 5th edition, whatever RPG I play, but it's really hard to play them because sometimes you want your players to potentially get a disease, but you also don't want it to really turn the game into a disease fighting game or whatever, you know. You don't want like one player being completely utterly screwed over by having a disease. So it's really hard to balance that and give your players potentially a disease, or to balance the fact that the chances are greater for only 1 person or 2 people to get the disease instead of like 4 people out of the party, like 5 people from the party getting the disease, which absolutely sucks. So it's really hard to play diseases. So that's something that I always look at when I get into a Game Master's Guide, when I start looking at the Game Master's Guide. Sorry, the diseases start right here. This section features a collection of ready-to-use diseases. You can use this section as inspiration when crafting your own. So there's just a bunch of diseases in here, and that's all I just wanted to basically point out. There's diseases in here. There's also curses in here, and one of the diseases is, and I think that's the most important part about it. It is dangerous, but it's also, you can also like fight it, right? So it's not like something that completely destroys the game. Apocalyptic fungus. I really love fungus diseases. When I put a special looking mushroom in a forest in my games, there is always people who want to touch it. Always. There's even people who absolutely want to eat it, and then I have to like roll on like random madness checks or whatever happens to them when they eat those mushrooms, and we got like this trip kind of thing, and then they're half tripping while they're fighting gnolls, and they think they're fighting orcs, but they're actually fighting gnolls. That kind of stuff happens when I do the fungus route, which I absolutely love, and it's always super funny. This infectious disease is transmitted by fungal spores. Infected creatures become irritated and sensitive to noise. In the final stages, fibrous fungal growth sprout from the skin, practically around the cranium. If left untreated, particularly around the cranium. If left untreated, infected creatures turn into spore-borne. See, Monsters Vault. And this is where Tales of the Valiant is like one game. So you have the Game Master's Guide from Tales of the Valiant. You just go into the Monster Vault and have like these spore-borne, right? So when a humanoid ingests food or water contained with the spores of an apocalyptic fungus or breathes in the spores, it must succeed on a DC 12 con save or become infected. So the way that I build my diseases is... Here's the thing. Here's the way I build my diseases. When I do diseases, when I make them up on the fly. If I want them to be somewhat dangerous, I always look at like if you had an entire city and the disease would crawl into the city, would come into the city, how many people would you want out of the entire population? How many people do you want to potentially get sick off of a disease, right? If you want half of the people to get sick off of a disease, the DC should be 10. Okay, mathematically, that doesn't really check out because that's not like the average on a D20. Also, a commoner has like minus on constitution checks, but there's also people in the city that have plus on constitution checks. So I just go off of that ID. It's not waterproof at all, but that's my ID. So, okay, there is this thing that a 10 is half of the population. 5 is a quarter of the population, 15 is 3/4 of the population, a 20 is almost the entire population, right? There might be like 1 or 2 people that are safe, that didn't caught it or whatever. So a DC 12 is just somewhat more than half of the population of a city would get this disease if this city got infected by those spores. That's how I see it. A DC 12 Constitution saving throw or become infected. Some creatures can also spread this disease. If a creature carries this disease, its statistics detail how it can spread the infection. An infected creature can't regain hit points, except by magical means. And when it finishes a long rest, it must succeed on a DC 13 con, so it becomes a little more difficult. It's like one of those bad flus you can get, right? Where it's really easy to catch it from your kids who return from school, right? And it's really hard to get rid of. Save or suffer 2 levels of exhaustion. If an infected creature has at least 1 level of exhaustion because of this disease, small fungal growth sprout from its skin, especially around its head. If an infected creature is slain or it suffers 6 levels of exhaustion, it doesn't die, but instead transforms into a skull boom spore-borne 1 hour after it would have died. Resolution: if the infected creature hasn't started sprouting fungal growth from its skin, the disease can be treated only with a magic or a successful DC 15 Wisdom Medicine check. If an infected creature hasn't yet transformed, the infection can be cured by a restoration spell or similar magic, and then blah 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 wish spell if they already transformed. This disease checks out, and I like how there is this statistical stuff where you cannot regain hit points. Instead of magical means, you need to roll DC 12 or Constitution saving checks, or you get exhaustion. But they're also sensitive to noise. But that's not something game mechanical, and that's what I like about diseases. Sometimes you need to remember your players, like there's a lot of noise there, you're really sensitive to that, and then the players start role-playing that, and they're such shut up, and they start role-playing that, and good players work with that. Even though it sucks that they have that disease, good players enjoy the fact that they have that their character has that disease to make role-playing opportunities better. And diseases are never meant to kill your party. They're never meant to completely break the game, at least in my department. They're never meant to like completely split up the party because one person is infectious or all of that stuff. They are, for me, a tool to show players that there's more going on in the overall world than just like the one mission they have, but also to give like role-playing opportunities. Sometimes, and this has happened a lot for me, I want my players to go to a certain priest, right? And they just don't go. And I drop hint after hint after hint to go to that priest, but they just don't go. Then I introduce this disease and hope one of the players catches this disease. Maybe with a DC 10, DC 12, a Constitution saving throw, they catch this disease and you're like, the only way is a restoration spell. But remember, you still need to go to that priest. And then they hop onto that priest. That priest asks like 5 gold pieces to restore their health, and they talk to that priest and the mission goes on. That is how I roll and work with diseases, and that's why I like it is in the Game Master's Guide.